Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Arvada City Council workshop meeting for today, Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025. Ms. Rush, if you'll do the roll call.
Mayor Simpson?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mormon?
Here.
Councilmember Ambrose?
Here.
Councilmember Davis?
Here.
Councilmember Piper?
Here.
Councilmember Marriott?
Here.
Councilmember Rupert?
Here.
Thank you. We have one workshop this evening, and that is for certified local government. Ms. Gardner, you have this one. Excellent.
I have the distinct honor of now handing it over to Rob Smetana, who's our planning manager, and Chris Sandine, who is our senior planner, is actually going to be presenting on certified local government. So if Rob doesn't have anything to say, we can just have Chris get up and present.
Come on up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Chris.
Hi. Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for your time this evening. So I am Chris Sandine. I'm a senior planner here with the City of Arvada. Before I get started, I'd like to just provide you with some background information on myself. So my formal education is in city planning, and I have a little bit of 7 years of experience in historic preservation as well. So prior to joining the city about 1.5 years ago, I was the staff liaison to a historic preservation commission for a local community back in the Chicagoland area, where I assisted them with establishing local landmarks, local and national historic districts, and obtaining certified local government status. So with all that said, I'm excited to talk tonight with you guys about historic preservation and the certified local government program. And then when I change that, do you guys also see that? Do you have screens or? Okay.
We do. We have little screens right down here, and we can see it as well.
Okay, cool. Well, great. So I want to first start with some background information and a few preservation highlights the city has completed over the past 30 years. Starting back in 1997, so the city commissioned a historic property survey for approximately 120 acres of land in southeast Arvada, which evaluated right around 311 resources. And the results of this survey led to 3 National Register historic districts: Old Town, Reno Park, and Stocky Walter. Now, surveys are vital to the historic preservation process because they essentially locate and document buildings, sites, and structures of potential local, state, and national importance. So those who do those surveys, think preservationists, architectural preservationists, those sorts of people, they go inventory every single site, and then they provide a recommendation as to whether that site is contributing or non-contributing based off the Secretary of Interior standards. So when they were creating these national historic districts for these 3 groups, they were looking at whether or not each individual structure and property that was deemed and researched there kind of met the standards, and then they created that recommendation. So that's how those were, a very high-level overview of how those were created. So surveys really only capture a moment in time, though. So during that 1997, obviously anything that happened after the fact was not included. So it's important to update these surveys to capture any sort of brand new addition, renovation, new construction, demolition, any modification that may affect the historical integrity of those resources. So although there may have been nothing new that came out of it, it's important to have that information because that's also what we're looking at now, using both of those data points when a property comes in and is looking to be renovated. We're looking, okay, what's the historic kind of significance of this property? We can refer back to 1997 or 2013 if there's been some modifications. Now, the other historic district, separate from these surveys, that was established also in 1998, was actually on the other side of town. So that is near Long Lake Regional Park, and this is the Church's Ranch Historic District. So this is an approximately 49-acre property that was deemed to have important rural and kind of cultural landscapes, and much of that homestead is still intact, and that's important to share because it highlights that when you think historic districts, you're probably thinking maybe in a downtown area, but this one on the other side of the city is kind of elsewhere, and it's important that you can do those historic reviews anywhere in the city. It doesn't have to be just in a downtown area. So there are other historic cultural landmarks in cities that just aren't in downtown. So that's kind of what I wanted to portray also with this one here. And although we don't have any local landmarks, there may be opportunities for individual homeowners who would like their own property to be preserved by pursuing local landmark status should we want to move forward with the CLG program. So I'm going to just briefly jump into the 3 downtown ones a little bit more. The first of which being Old Town, or the Arvada Downtown Historic District. So this is probably what people think of when they think Old Town or Arvada's downtown, right? It evokes that sense of place, heritage, and culture, which you see on the map here is either side of Wads or on the north side of Grandview there. And walking through Old Town, you have that mixture of building types. You got single-family residences to retail, office, and mixed use. And one element that really helps keep that character alive is the Old Town Design Guidelines, which right now, any redevelopment or new development project that occurs in the Old Town zoning district, and I'm not just talking about what you see on the map here, it's the whole Old Town zoning district, is subject to those standards, which helps guide development in an appropriate way. And then you got just to the west of Old Town is the Reno Park neighborhood, which is characterized as having more traditional single-family residential homes. They often have smaller lots, more narrow lots with alley-loaded garages. That allows for those landscape front yards and tree-lined streets there. And similar to how Old Town is subject to design guidelines, these individual properties are subject to the Reno Park design guidelines in this area. So, and if you're wondering what that small jut out is just south of the tracks there, that is the Arvada water tower. Then jumping over to Stocky Walter, this one, of course, a little bit further east from Old Town, across Wadsworth Bypass. There have been several important characteristics in this neighborhood that have been identified. And although the neighborhood does date back over 100 years, any existing and new developments in this area are subject to dimensional and design criteria. And although it doesn't use design guidelines, it does use a final development plan that sets and establishes that criteria.
Quickly, I have a quick question on this map. So you can see it, jutting down a little bit, these 2 sort of lower bumps that go below the Grandview Avenue and the railroad tracks. It looks like this second one that's cube-shaped, the one that doesn't have the little extra jut out, it looks like is that over that little like shopping center building right there? And it's carved out like it's dividing them, it's bisecting them as opposed to encompassing all of them. 1, are those buildings historic? Because they sure don't look historic to me. And 2, why this particular little carve out?
My best guess, we noticed this too when we were going through this, and I had the same exact question. My best guess is at the time when this was established, those 2 buildings weren't there. And it was either a different building that was considered historic at the time and it was torn down. Just being on a national register doesn't prohibit tear downs of the building. It can still get torn down and there's really no protection unless you're receiving federal funding. So that's the only potential source of protection, but there really isn't much. So it's, in my best guess, there was something there that was historic, that's why it's included. Those boundaries were never shifted and something new was built in its place.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Ambrose, your light is on.
Yes, I think also on this map, I think the point you're pointing out here, Mayor, is on the east side there is the Stocky Walter Park. And like you said, it cuts right through the middle of that park, and I wonder if the park is actually the historic part?
It could be. Yeah, does this have a pointer? Maybe not. Right.
You are very tall. Like,
So, yeah, that's what, so I wonder, I don't know, like when that new development was going into place, if they moved the park over from where the park historically was before, or, I'm not sure.
I am also not sure offhand. I apologize.
good to know. All right, Councilmember Marriott, I apologize. I was not overruling you. She just had her light on first. Your turn.
Well, I have the answer if you want it.
Would love it.
Okay. So contained in there, there were several residences previously that were part of the original Stocky Walter subdivision. They were purchased by the Solana people when they built that and were removed, and the Solana development was developed, and there was no park there ever. Was made when they developed that development, so there never was historically a park there. But it's exactly why. I mean, the historic district boundaries don't change when something gets torn down. The boundaries don't mean that everything in there is historic. It just means that's the boundaries of the district.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Marriott. You may continue.
Thank you. So, kind of given this historical context, the question is kind of where do we go from here? And that's one reason we're here tonight, to try and get some guidance. But we also pulled some of the city documents and saying, okay, has there been any discussion on this in the past, and what has that guidance been up to date? So I pulled a number of different documents here, and I wanted to kind of go through those with you as well. So the 2014 comprehensive plan suggests several different goals in regards to historic preservation throughout the city, one of which is redeveloping and revitalizing existing commercial and industrial areas, not only in Old Town, but throughout the entire city. So this goal also coincides with some language within the City Council strategic plan, which notes how Arvada's historic downtown offers a diverse shopping and dining scene. And I wanted to draw these two together because there's name recognition with historic downtown, Old Town, that really draws people in who are looking to enjoy the restaurants, shops, and services that are being offered. But with that said, historic preservation should also be considered outside of Old Town too, as we have heard other property owners expressing that their areas do matter as well. Now, a second goal that the comp plan talks about and identifies is an opportunity to plan Arvada as a city of different development character districts, which is very interesting, such as preserving established historic districts and identifying new ones. And this is where we're having, a preservation plan and understanding where do we want to go from here would be greatly impacted. And then the third and final goal that we found in the comp plan discusses the importance of preserving historic resources and expanding preservation education and awareness in Arvada and Old Town. So there were several underlying policies to make this goal come to fruition, including promoting historic preservation efforts, partnering with the historic preservation community, like the Arvada Historic Society, who we have met with a few times already this year, and we'll continue to have an open dialogue with them moving forward. Utilizing design guidelines like the Old Town and Reno Park design guidelines, and also giving consideration to becoming a certified local government. Which really leads me right into the next slide here. So, what exactly is a certified local government, and why is it something that should be considered? So essentially, a certified local government, or a CLG for short, it's a county or municipality that's been endorsed by the State Historic Preservation Office, in our case, History Colorado, and the National Park Service to participate in the National Preservation Program while maintaining standards consistent with the National Historic Preservation Act and the Secretary of Interior Standards for Archaeology and Historic Preservation. Now, in the state of Colorado, there are 130 local governments with preservation ordinances. 68 of those are certified local governments, and there's approximately 2,100 CLGs nationwide. And this map that you do have on your screen here is the state of Colorado, of course. Every blue pin you see there is one of those 68 certified local governments, and then kind of the blue shaded areas are the counties that are certified. So if you see, I also included where we are in Arvada, and you can see we're kind of smack dab in the middle of a lot of those Front Range communities to the north of Denver. So there are a number of them around us, but that is just kind kind of for your reference to see where everyone's located.
Thank you. Councilmember Davis.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this, too. So I just want council to know that when I went to the Loveland Colorado Municipal League Conference, they had a session on historic preservation presented by History Colorado. And when it came to the listing of certified local governments, we were the only city that was not a certified local government on the Front Range. And so I think that just given some of the plans and guidance, that becoming a CLG for Arvada would be really, it's pain-free, it is free, and it would just allow us to take advantage and be cohesive with other surrounding communities. So I brought this back from CML, and as soon as I saw Ms. Garner, I pounced on her, and super excited that she had hired Mr. Sandin. And unbeknownst to me, he had already done this in the Chicagoland area. So I'm really excited about the experience that he's going to bring to this program.
Thank you. And perfect segue again. So next I just want to jump into what are the benefits? What are the concerns? So becoming a certified local government is going to be more than just adding our name to that list and putting our dot on the map. It's going to be an opportunity for the city to really become a local leader in preservation, leading preservation plans, providing outreach to residents, property owners, and business owners on opportunities that are available for restoration, and most importantly that I've heard, getting access to exclusive grant funding. So cities with CLG status are eligible to apply for a no-match grant through History Colorado that can help pay for new preservation plans, design guideline updates, outreach campaigns, or celebration events. Those grants are primarily geared towards the city itself, but there's also other grants that are more geared towards actual residents or property owners, and all of those tend to become available once you become a certified local government. So back on the CLG grant though, those really become valuable because you can use those also towards conducting new surveys. So like I kind of mentioned a little earlier, survey areas should be updated, and it's also important to update, or not update, but actually survey new areas. So say you've got the Alta Vista neighborhood, for instance, or any other neighborhood that's interested in seeing if they have historic resources that are contributing to potential districts. You'd be able to get that information through a survey, which you could then have paid for through this program. So it's not something the city itself is necessarily putting money towards and for getting those resources. Let's see. So property owners, another benefit of that as well is, say there's only a handful of actual buildings in that area that was surveyed. That's not enough to create a district. But you've got a property owner who's got something that's really cool over there and wants to save that building. That individual property owner would then have the opportunity to say, I've got all this research done, it's a contributing building, I want this to be a local landmark. So that would be another opportunity for them to then preserve their home, should they want to do so. Now, other funding mechanisms include potentially tapping into the State Historical Fund, which can offer grants up to $250,000. Although eligible properties for this grant include those that are landmarked or designated as contributing within a local or national historic district. The caveat with this one is that there needs to be a public benefit, which is typically seen with commercial properties or nonprofits. So there are standards in there. However, they did mention that this specific grant may also assist with acquisition costs or rehabilitation of structures. And then there's other grants that are available, and I apologize, I'm not an expert on the actual specifics of all of those, but we do have contacts over at History Colorado who would be more than happy to talk about any specific situations that come up. And they've been very helpful so far with everything that I've dealt with them, so I'm sure they would be more than happy to talk with anyone if you do have a specific project or if anything does come up. But given the benefits, what are the concerns? The biggest concern that I would hear from property owners in my prior position typically came down to property rights. And this question is usually, is this going to add another layer of regulation limiting what I can do on my property? And it's a very valid question, but there are nuances to it. So right now, if you recall, the Old Town zoning district and Reno Park are both subject to design guidelines. So there's already a layer of design review in place for that area. Becoming a certified local government doesn't necessarily add any additional layers to what's already in place. It may shift that review from those design guidelines for our design review advisory committee who's in place to this Historic Preservation Commission. But right now, there's still a layer of review there for them. Where this would potentially change is if a property or a neighborhood specifically wanted to come in and be a local landmark or a local historic district. Then they're making that decision to want to come in, understanding that, okay, now there are additional design standards that would be in the local preservation ordinance that we may have to comply with. Typically, those design standards relate to the Secretary of Interior standards, which are already reflected in our Reno Park and Old Town design guidelines. But we do have leeway in how those are enforced. So the city could take a hard stance and say, you really need to do it per the National Park Service, per their book. Or you could take a more lenient standard and make recommendations to them. And where I've seen this come into play is you've got, think of like an old cedar shake roof or something on someone's old home. And they're like, it's at the end of its life, and it's really not feasible either financially or with, wildfire risks, any sort of thing that could come up. And you probably would have someone say, it should be replaced to meet how it was originally built. You could take a hard stance and say that's what you should do, or we're not giving you a building permit. Or you have an opportunity to say, here's what you should do, but there's better alternatives out there and you could still look the same. And what's the better option? What's more reasonable? What's more feasible? That's up to each individual municipality to make that determination to say, okay, what's best for us? So becoming a CLG, they're not going to mandate you need this very hard stance preservation ordinance, but they will say you at least need to at least provide them a recommendation, but it can still be go do your own thing. So there really is options as to if you want to go through with this, how lenient, how strict do you want to be? Let's see. Now another element that does come into play, and you may have heard this in Denver, is can I nominate my neighbor's property? Or does the property owner themselves need to nominate their property? Once again, this is something that we as a municipality can regulate. We can put that into our ordinance. We can say only the property owner is the one who can make this recommendation for themselves. I don't think you probably would want to go the route of adding restrictions on your neighbor's property, but that's a discussion that can be had. And similarly with a historic district, in the ordinance there does need to be a certain threshold as to how many people within the district are signing on to this. So if you got 10 people, 10 neighbors on the block, and we say you need at least 50%, 75%, whatever the threshold is, you need to get that threshold before you can actually apply for a district. So in that case, you're right, you may have a few people who don't sign on who are lumped into a district. But that's all part of the conversation that can be had. And now other potential concerns that sometimes come up, finding and retaining qualified commissioners. I don't think that may be much of a problem we have here. We already have a design review advisory committee who does look at Old Town design guidelines. So I have to think there's some interest if that were to be retooled or if there was a new commission, however that may work out. We also have a very active community, and we only need 5 commissioners. So finding 5 people who are interested, who meet the qualifications, I think should be something that should be doable. But the last potential concern is there's going to be an initial time commitment to this. So it's not going to happen overnight. There will be some time to do community outreach, which may go in tandem with the upcoming comprehensive plan update. along with creating a new historic preservation ordinance, a new commission, and then getting all the documentation together. So there will be some time that it takes to get all of that together. So if there is interest in pursuing this opportunity, History Colorado does have some bare minimum requirements that we will need to meet. First is enacting a local preservation ordinance that provides the legal framework for the preservation program, designating, protecting historic buildings, sites, and structures, as well as putting in whether there is that owner consent for individual listed buildings, as well as that minimum threshold for the owners who would like to form a district. And then, as I said before, these are kind of left up to us as a local municipality, which gives us some flexibility when crafting the ordinance as to how high or how low we want those thresholds to be. There are also several model ordinances on the History Colorado website that we could follow, or there are 68 other municipalities, and we could look at any one of them and see how they're doing things if we want other background and updates. The second, like I just mentioned, is establishing a commission with at least 5 members. All of them must have an interest, competence, or knowledge in historic preservation. And the last commission I was on, not all of them were architects, not all of them were, archivalists, anything like that. We had a wide range of professions on there. So we did have some people who are in architecture, and we do need at least 40% to be from a professional field like history, landscape architecture, archaeology, anthropology. But the rest of them just need to have some sort of interest and kind of portray that interest. And then the rest of the requirements are pretty straightforward. Providing opportunities for public participation, essentially giving notice to the public about upcoming meetings, things we're already doing with other meetings and commissions, maintaining a system of survey and inventory, which we do have on city files already and is available to the public. Submitting an annual report, which is essentially letting History Colorado know how many meetings we've held and the minutes to those meetings. And then they evaluate us every 4 years. So they send someone from History Colorado to one of the meetings and really talk about what's our preservation goals for the next X amount of years. So these requirements seem to be very straightforward that I think we are already meeting in a lot of different ways. And last slide for you. So I've kind of already alluded to several of the different updates potentially to our existing processes that would need to happen. And like I said, good news is that it doesn't look like a lot would need to change, really. Right now, we do have the Design Review Advisory Committee. There are 7 members on it. They meet once a month. And they already provide advice and recommendations to the director on projects regarding compliance with design guidelines. By establishing a local preservation ordinance, we would really need to discuss whether that means retooling this or coming up with a new commission. Also, the name doesn't really matter to History Colorado. It can stay this name. It can be changed to Historic Preservation Commission, Committee, whatever we want to call it, as long as what's in the ordinance meets what's in their requirements.
Quick question for Design Review Committee. Is the current structure of that committee limited just to our historical districts, or does it have design authority over other non-historical districts within the city?
I may have to phone a friend on this one. I do not know the answer to that off the top of my head, but perhaps.
Thanks, Mr. Smetana has got this one.
Yeah, they only review cases within the Old Town zoning district at this point.
Does that include Stocky Walter and Reno Park?
It does not.
Okay.
Neither one of those are under their purview, just the Old Town area.
So we'd probably have to change that and to include all the historical districts.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And piggybacking on that is one big change, that these commissioners would then be more involved and they would have more opportunities to learn and teach residents as well. But there would be that additional requirement of them to be involved with other parts of the city, definitely. Otherwise, I think a lot of the groundwork's already there. We have most of those required processes in place. There are things that do need to get created, updated, tweaked, changed to fit the CLG program and also how you would want to do it. But with that said, I would just want to thank you for your time tonight and listening. Open to any questions and just interested in feedback. I'd like us to proceed.
All right,
Thank you.
open it to council for questions, feedback. Councilmember Ambrose.
Yeah, under the idea of tweaking the existing design review committee, how do people get on that committee now? Is it entirely staff? Is it volunteers?
They are appointed by the city council.
But I believe the criteria is they have to be business owners in Old Town and there has to be an
Business
architect.
owners, we've got, let's see, the Historic Society is one of the representatives, Old Town Business. I think there's a requirement for an architect. We actually have 2 of those. We do have 2 at-large positions as well. They can be from anywhere in the city.
Okay, yeah, we haven't had to appoint that one in a while, so. Councilmember Davis.
I would like you to go forth and conquer.
Councilmember Rupert.
Well, I'm interested in knowing what would this enable us to do that we can't already accomplish on our own, if anything?
So, yeah, so a lot of this would be getting additional grant funding. Not only
Okay.
for us to pursue potential surveys and really lean into potential historic preservation plans. It would also potentially give residents and property owners opportunity for tax funding, or tax credits, I should say.
Okay. And is the funding primarily federal funding?
There are 2 there's a couple different sources of funding. The CLG funding that comes through is funded through the federal funding that goes to History Colorado, and then they are required to allocate 10% of that whole funding that they get towards CLGs and these sorts of grants.
Mm-hmm.
So that funding is coming from federal. There is also a state historic preservation fund that comes from taxes with the 3 gambling cities in Colorado.
All right.
So that is not tied to any federal funding.
All right. Thanks.
Councilmember Marriott.
A couple thoughts. So my experience, and I live in a historic house. I'm sure I'm the only one here who does. But as someone who lives in a house like that, I'm very, very leery about ever asking for federal funds or funds that come from the feds, because they only come with restrictions. They don't come with more freedom or flexibility. They only come with less. And my thought is that if the city of Arvada is serious about wanting to do preservation, you need to do more than just this. There's got to be something that holds property owners harmless from the harm that this may cause. And the harm is, you mentioned it, if you're going to replace your roof. You can say, well, you can have some flexibility there and do what you want, but once you've got that on the books, all it takes is 4 of the 7 sitting up here to be strict preservationists, and they can change that anytime they want, and take that away from you. And if the city wants to benefit from historic preservation of individuals' property, the city ought to share in holding those property owners harmless. And so what I would be thinking of would be, if you were, one of these historical properties or in a historic district, and you wanted to do something in whether it's design guidelines or whether it's requirements of getting a grant or whether it's requirements of our own ordinance for preservation, you're subject to those things and it costs more, the city ought to pay the difference. And so, as someone who lives in a historic house, I'm fine with preserving it historically. but I'm not sure I can afford to do to the strictest standards that somebody might do. And so if I'm going to be held to standards that are not very strict, I wouldn't need much help. But if I were going to be held to standards that are incredibly strict, I would need an incredible amount of help. And I think the situation you want to avoid is what crazy communist Denver has done, which is where, you know, not only do they allow strangers to designate somebody else's property as historic, I mean, that's a crazy situation. I read an article in the Denver Post just last week about some homeowners who bought a house that's uninhabitable, end of its life. It cost 2 or 3 times as much to try to preserve it as to tear it down and rebuild it. And they're being prevented from tearing it down, building a new house where they want to. They're dramatically impacted by this. And of course, it's always an 11th hour thing, and they're delayed, and the delays cost money, and they've got nowhere to live. I mean, it's an absolute swamp. And so you have to try to avoid that first. And then 2, if we are going to undertake, if the council wants to undertake something like this and put guidelines in place that can be enforced, the city needs to have a little bit of skin in the game as well, and also be part of it. So there shouldn't be money just from these federal grants, which is almost always unobtainable and comes with so many strings, you don't want it even if you could get it. You know, it costs you twice as much to do what you get a grant for half of the amount to do. But that the city should be part of the mix and say, hey, every year we're going to allocate some amount of money out of the general fund, whether it's $10,000 or $50,000 or $500,000. I don't know how much, but some amount out of the general fund that then would be part of this funding mix, so that for someone who would like to preserve their property and would like and is restricted on what they can do because of these adoptions of these things, that they would have some built-in help to do it, and that it wouldn't necessarily be on a case-by-case basis. So I think it's a much bigger conversation than just everybody else did it, so we should do it too. You know, that's kind of that's what kids in junior high do. They say, everybody got white shoes, I better get them too. You know, I don't think we should do that. I think we ought to think a little harder about it. Think about what the real ramifications of it are. And I got to tell you, as someone who lives in a historic residence, this kind of stuff's pretty scary to me. Because no offense, but I don't really want somebody else telling me what I can do. And I'm very much aligned with wanting to preserve historical things, but I may not be able to, depending on who adopts what, and you know, not having a voice there, but being subject to it. And so I think we need to have a deeper discussion about that long before we undertake something like this.
Thank you. Apologies to our friends in Denver who are neither crazy nor communists. Councilmember Davis.
Thank you. So I started my list of commission members, and number 2 was Marriott. So I just want to make sure that we are clear here and that the public is clear that, so in the CLG benefits, the access to grant funding would allow things for, like perhaps a government match from the city of Arvada to assist people in doing things to upgrade their historic home and maybe making some of those improvements. And also, we would put language in our ordinance that would prevent neighbors from doing something to their neighbor's property, because currently I don't think I can paint my neighbor's house pink, but if I can, I will. Look out, Joey. So I just want to make sure that I thought you were very clear on what we can do with these tax credits if somebody wants to declare their house historic and historic preservation. I think that would be very neat. I do know that there are several historic families in Arvada who think that this is a great idea, some of whom are on the board of the Arvada Historical Society, and then also a name that's probably very familiar to those everywhere, and that's the Church McKay family. They are really on board with us being a CLG. So I believe that we do have the community backing for doing something like this. we are leaving money on the table. I don't think it's necessarily we're just doing it because we're all in junior high. I think this is something that is a feather in our cap as far as Arvada is concerned, that we want to preserve Arvada's history, and you've heard me say it before. If we don't tell our history, somebody else will tell it, and they're going to get it wrong. So that is just telling the story and having this opportunity to be a CLG, for me, is it's historic preservation, it's history for Arvada, and I want to make sure that we tell our story, we get it right, and we preserve everything in Arvada that is worth preserving. Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem Werman.
Thank you for the presentation, and I benefited from learning about this program, so appreciate that. I am certainly open to proceeding and learning more about this and looking at how we can do that. And I think just some of the points raised this evening, I think the dirt's always in the details, and we get to control that. And so I think that having our staff pursue this and develop a proposal that we can react to and provide feedback and get community feedback on will be very beneficial for our community. So I would be in favor of moving forward and making sure we have a robust system to set that up. Thank you.
Councilmember Ambrose.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm really for this. I think a lot of the District 2 has a lot of historic properties, and the majority of the ones that you've outlined here are in District 2. And working with the Arvada Historical Society, I think that this would be a shot in the arm for the things that our citizens have been doing to try and preserve a lot of these gems that have brought people to Arvada. And so I think since most of the support seems to be about aligning state funding, a lot of local control for this. So I think it's a great initiative, and appreciate your bringing it forward to be able to help what our people, our residents are already doing.
Thank you. I'll echo the comments of my colleagues. I think this is, particularly because we get to control the process. I hear the concerns, and I think they're absolutely valid, that if we were to go with highly strict standards, you can only do this or that, that becomes very problematic. But if we have the ability to say, well, you have that option, but here's perhaps a better way that works for everybody, you can get more improved structures, but at the same time maintain the character and the feel, which is what we're truly after. I think then by the state allowing that this works quite well for what we need. In addition, it opens up these revenue sources with Old Town is not, forgive me, it is not cheap to maintain Old Town. That it takes a lot of intentional thought and effort and investment, continuous investment by the business owners, by the city, by everybody. And so the ability to bring more resources to bear to maintain those efforts so that we can also rightfully allocate resources to outside of Old Town, which is just as important, I think makes a lot of sense. So I also say go forward, and I like the idea of timing it with the comp plan. I think that could move quite nicely. Oh, and with that, I see no other lights, so thank you very much.
Thank you all.
All right, Mr. Sandin, that was all we had this evening. It is not even 7 o'clock yet. Mr. Wick, I think we're going to get out early tonight, yeah?
I believe so.
All right.
Just a couple of real quick things for an update on the Severe Weather Shelter Network, IGA. All the agencies have approved that, so we will be moving forward with that. And finally, we do not have a meeting next week, so we will see you all on October 7th at the business meeting.
All right, Ms. Morris?
Nothing from me, Your Honor.
All right, we are adjourned.